All right, listen. This software is called 3D Coat, and yeah, if you're curious to what oh man, what the heck? Oh, oh, I see. Okay, that's funny. So the other day I was teaching, and I was like in this mode, and I was like, where, what? Why is my interface unfamiliar? And I realize now that I was like, it's just like one thing right above voxel sculpting, and so I was kind of like thrown off by where I was at. But now I can see what happened. That's so funny. Anyway, yeah, because I was teaching a class and I was trying to show them some sculpting, and I was like, "Where the hell am I?" when I was in the photogrammetry. Anyway, voxel sculpting. There we go. Okay, let's grab the sphere. Oh, this is the if you're like already like, whoa, what? This is the default Jama clay that kind of comes. I just gave it like a gray. Um, it comes with the tool, and Jama is like a huge 3D code user and knows the developers personally. So I think they're just like, can we like just put that in there? And he's like, yeah, go for it. I'm assuming it's a really nice guy. I made my own little painterly materials too, which are cool. What else? Yeah, look at that. But yeah, it's just fun to sculpt with, but it's not necessarily something that I am always using. But it is fun to sculpt with. Oh, I need more. I need more geometry. Oh, what? What happened? You don't want to commit to my changes, you goober. All right. Anyway, we're gonna go with a matte cat material. So this isn't gonna be a tutorial on how to use 3D code. If you were curious, what's about to happen here, but rather this is going to be a tutorial on nothing. No, I'm just kidding. It's gonna be. Sorry, I'm just I'm getting lost in the. I was like, ooh, what's going on with this brush? Um, this is going to be a bit of me talking about how I, you know, make bad art to make good art. It's ultimately the theme of today's video. And I think a lot of times when people go online and they see incredible artists, there's this like subconscious thought that they're doing something that we're not doing. Like they are up to something, and if we could just get right behind their mind and see what they've been doing, what they've been up to, then we will be given the keys to the kingdom. And I thought about this because the other day somebody messaged me on my Instagram, and they were just asking me like my process, like how do I come up with ideas and stuff. And I was just being honest with them. You know, the first thing I usually do whenever people ask me, like, how do you do something? Like, how do you get good at something? How do you practice something? How do you, like, any kind of how do you do the thing that you do? I usually will ask them, well, what do you think you would do? You know, like, I just kind of want to see where they're at mentally, like where they think a good answer would be. Hold on, I need to find the actual. Okay, cool. You know, and a lot of times when people are asked this question, you know, they start to think of like all these things like, oh, maybe I should do this or maybe I should do that. For instance, let's say somebody's like, hey, like, how do I get better at anatomy? And I said, well, what do you think you should do to get better at anatomy? I said, well, I should probably study anatomy. I'm like, okay. Um, like, elaborate. Like, yeah, maybe I can get some books. Maybe I can, you know, not just get some books, but like also just go online and find communities. Like, okay, cool. What else? What else? And they're like, maybe do like life drawing sessions. I'm like, great. What else? What else? you know, and they'll just kind of go on and on and on and on and on and start listing more and more things. And usually I'm like, yep, that's what you do. And they're like, wait, what? Well, yeah, like everything you just said, that's how you get better at anime. And the moral is that people assume, again, like they're doing something wrong or there's something else to it, that there's got to be a different method. And what they're not realizing is that their they're mistaking kind of the challenge of getting good at something with the idea that that's wrong, you know, because they might have tried it. They might have tried something on their own, and it just didn't work out. Oh, what the? I kind of like it. I'm gonna keep it. Um, and it's not like easily working out for them. So then they assume that again, all of this is not ordained. And this video, I'm gonna like label it or title it like drawing something bad or drawing bad art to make good art is the kind of the point. Like you gotta draw kind of shitty more frequently than you draw well because that's the whole point. Like you're not good. So you need to draw bad a lot to get good. I was watching a writer talk about this. I think it's the guy who created the Rick and Morty show. And he was saying something about like how do you get past writer's block? And he says, try to convince yourself you're a bad writer. And what I think what he was implying is that don't try to prove you're a good writer, because if you try to prove you're a good writer, then you're going to constantly block yourself because you're like, this is not good, this is not good, this is not good. But if you try to prove you're a bad writer, say, okay, well, obviously this isn't good. Let me write more to prove again how bad I am at writing, you know, and see where that takes you. And I like kind of the spirit of what he's getting at, but I kind of want to expand on what the value of this type of thinking does, which is ultimately just drawing more. You gotta just draw a lot more. That's ultimately what we're asking of you, you know. And whenever people are looking for answers, they assume that again they don't have the answer. They assume that they don't know. And listen, is there going to be like levels of complexity on how to train that if you would have just done these kinds of steps, that perhaps you would have advanced your skill a little bit quicker, a little bit more effectively? Yeah, of course, you know. But the critique that I'm having is like if you're not consistently engaged in practicing and training, like if you're not like always drawing and you're not always practicing and advancing the skills in which you care to advance, like if you're not actively participating in this, then wondering how to start is a non-starter, right? Like that is not the place where you should be thinking. In fact, that kind of questioning of like where to start should almost never truly exist. You shouldn't worry about how to start. You should have already been doing. And instead you should be worrying about other things. More like why is my anatomy bad? Why is my designs uninteresting? Why do I find myself constantly doing this? Or why do I find myself constantly running into this problem? Why do what is it about this artist that I love their work that I want to kind of replicate? What is it about this artist that I could kind of see more of their mistakes and what I should probably try to avoid? What is it about this artist that that if I, you know, I don't know, I'm just trying to think off the dome now. What is it about this person that provides this insight, et cetera, right? And if you're constantly in a place where you're challenging and growing as an artist, you're drawing bad art, you're always giving yourself something to critique, you know? And if you haven't given yourself something giving yourself something to critique, then you have something to try to address. And if you have something to try to address, then you have something to work on. And if you have something to work on, then you're going to be consistently drawing more and more and more and more and more. You know, bro, I don't know why I have draw as my hotkey here, but let me change this because I realize I'd rather want clay or clay fast. I think clay. Or is it voxel clay that I care more about? Let's see. Ooh, voxel clay. Voxel clay is a tyrant. Voxel clay does not play around. Yeah, let's do this. Ooh, I'd like it. Because I'm trying to get some of those aggressive paint gains, dude. Not trying to get this soft stuff. Trying to get big strokes, big meaningful changes to my piece of art. What does clay feel like again? Let's see. Let's try it out. I think clay is just a little bit more tamer. Okay, let's go with a little bit in between. All right, so let's do this. And 4. Yes, redefined. 4, 5, 4. Got it. What? Okay. And for those of you who are wondering how I'm like able to extrude so violently earlier, I'm using this sphere brush right here. If you were, which essentially lets you draw in 3D space, which is really cool. And if you draw from the first point, then it will just kind of extrude from there, and you'll have some understanding of where it's coming from. If you remove that, then what it will do is it'll kind of like trace your forms, which is useful depending on what you're going to use this for. I actually have some ideas what I'm going to do that. I'm going to give this some mecha design. But anyway, okay, dude, I like completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, okay, I think I got it. So if you're always drawing bad art, that's a good thing, because that means, again, you have a lot to talk about with yourself. But if you're afraid of drawing bad art, and you're afraid, like, oh, if I start though, it's going to be terrible, and I'm going to be terrible, and my ideas are going to be terrible, and people are going to judge me for this, and I'm going to hate myself for the art that I made, then the problem that you're facing then is the reality that this is probably already true, except for maybe a couple of things. For instance, if you're not a very good artist, like if you haven't been training and you don't have enough skills to pay the bills, then it's probably already true that you're not good, right? And that's okay. Like, genuinely, who cares if you're not good other than yourself, right? People start to be critical of you only when you become good, to be honest. Like when you start to reach a level of success and quality, then you'll start to get people that might, for lack of a better term, be hating on you, but not in the beginning. Like, definitely not in the beginning, or at least not in my experience. Very rarely. And if you do encounter people that are very critical in a mean-spirited way at the start of your journey, we all agree that those types of people suck. So you don't even care about their judgment anyway. And an artist like myself is almost never going to be like talking shit about your artwork, right? I'm always going to be very encouraging, because we all been there. We're all working on it. And I'm going to support that journey. Where I have very little tolerance, typically, where I lose my patience, is if I've given this advice of like, yeah, just go ahead, get started, start making stuff, start doing stuff, start going for it, be consistent, and you just kind of go out of your way to not be consistent and find every reason underneath the sun to justify why you can't do the things you want to do. That to me starts to become a problem, because there's a saying that I always use, which is, you can lead a horse to water, but if the horse doesn't drink, then that's on them to die from thirst. So that to me starts to become an issue where I feel like I've given enough good feedback to say, hey, get going. And if the person starts to stay stagnant, even after I've been patient and walk them through as many pieces of advice, eventually I just stop. you know? I give it my best effort, and I just wait for them to be prepared to just begin that journey. Because obviously, they're in a different spot in their life, and I cannot push them past that. If you're in my class, though, like if you're a student, and that's part of the idea that I'm here to help you out, then I will try to give you assignments and keep you accountable within the environment of class. But outside of that, like I can't be driving people's drive all the time. People have to have their own self motivations. And all I try to do is give them the tools to have that begin. But I think that's ultimately the only time where I might feel a little bit resistant to more advice is if all the advice has been given and all the markers to help you succeed have been provided, but yet you still find reasons and explanations to kind of prevent that from happening, then yeah, you gotta do some deep searching in your own soul to kind of eliminate that, right? But I always say, the only way to be bad at art, like truly not improve, is to not do anything. Like that is genuinely the only thing that I can imagine that will make you worse. You drawing more, even if it's bad art, even if you're studying ineffectively, even if you're training yourself in a terrible way, like you're not actually doing all the Andrew Loomis exercises or the this tutorial by Proco that's really insightful, but you're just not doing it. And like you're just kind of like drawing whatever you want to draw, like even like stick figures, you're gonna get good at something, and including like the stick figure example. Like if you think about like those Flash animators who used to just draw those stick figures, if you follow any one of those people who are consistently doing that, you'll find that they also are the kinds of people that ended up becoming really good at stick figure animation, even though it's still kind of like stick figure. Enough so that I bet if you transitioned them to kind of like a traditional 2D animation pipeline and gave them like a little bit more time to improve their art skills, once their art skills catch up, their animation principles will really shine because they were training that throughout those little stick figure flash animations that they were doing. You know what I mean? Like, you genuinely shouldn't be getting bad at art if you're constantly making art. And so I make bad art to get good at art. I am never afraid of showing kind of the artwork that I have. Like I was just looking at my Instagram today from all the artwork I've been posting for my YouTube channel. And I took a couple things away from it. I was like, okay, well, for one, this stuff isn't getting the kinds of reaction that I would normally get if I just posted something that I just would paint and genuinely try to paint well. And usually if I'm doing a painting while I'm talking, there's always going to be a bit of a sacrifice in the overall quality, generally speaking, not all the time. And that is okay, But if I'm like locked in, super focused, and I can draw without thinking too much, then I have a lot better chance of doing quality artwork. In fact, some of my later tutorials, I was starting to do that. I was starting to begin to essentially record myself first without any consequence of worrying about what I was saying during the process, and then talk over it. And there's value in that, but it depended on what I was trying to teach. But there's other times where like kind of like this, where it's kind of the point. I'm just making something. I don't really care how good or bad it is. I'm just doing it. Because my objective right now is not to make good art, but to make a lot of video content and to share good advice, And as a tool, just have some painting or drawing, or in this instance, sculpting going on in the background. So it's kind of a bit of you can either listen or you can watch or you can do both, Great, cool. And to me, when I looked at my Instagram and I was like, okay, like I'm sharing some of this stuff and I can see that there's a difference. There's definitely a difference here. So I said to myself, okay, well, listen, maybe in a week or two, or maybe even sooner, who knows, I'm going to shift gears. I am going to try to make something a little bit more impressive right? And see if I can get the best of both worlds. The main goal still, pop out a video as often as I can. But the second goal is, can I make an incredibly appealing piece of artwork? Not just impressive for what it is, but like actually genuinely portfolio building. And that will probably take some time. But there's already a good example of kind of the advice I'm giving you guys now, which is making bad content to learn how to make better content. I always say this thing of, learn to, or sorry, I always say this thing of it's hard to know what time to beat if you never finish the race, right? So you got to finish a race, get a time, and then you know what time to beat. And for me, as I make more video content, as I put it online more and more, I'm starting to get an understanding of what time to beat. You know what I mean? And it's becoming more clear. I'm seeing like the metrics. I'm seeing what works well, what doesn't work well. And I'm approaching this very much like the way I approached my art, which is focus mostly on what I already like doing and seeing if I can make it pop off, or see what I was doing that I already liked doing, but it was seeing why it was popping off and see if I can expand on it, and that's what I've done in my entire career, and it's worked out perfectly fine for me. Basically, not chase kind of any trend, but rather chase like what people like about what I do already, and just either do more of it, which is essentially compounding it, or if there is something that I like to do and I'm not seeing kind of the results I would like, then just be critical. Say, okay, well, what could have I done better? What could I have done to make it more appealing to the audience that already kind of likes what I do, right? And that's the product of making bad art, making artwork that might not do well. You get an idea of what you can probably do differently, And I think a lot of this fear of just getting started, getting in there, is just unwarranted for kind of the objective that most of you guys are trying to get at. Yeah, see, this is pretty cool. Little clay thingy. Let's see what it looks like with some actual lighting on this bad boy. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I'm into it. All right, so let's get some fun stuff going on here. Let us try to make some sort of outfit on this guy. Let's see if we can do it. Yeah, I'm thinking right now. All right, so what I'm going to do here is start to draw from the point so I can get more rigidity. And I'm like not talking now because I'm actually just thinking. Okay. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this anyway. So that's why I'm like, all right, I think I'm going to be done. Because I don't want this to be too impressive where I would actually spend a lot more time to make it look really awesome. I'm just going to make it look pretty fascinating, and that should be enough. But yeah, you could see kind of like this idea of drawing bad art for the sake of it. I think when people start to break free from kind of any preconceived notions of what makes something good, they start to feel a little bit of freedom. They feel a little bit more like they have more opportunity to learn. And I think what I love about making art is that it's just super fascinating to just see kind of like something that was not there before, and then something comes out of it in a matter of seconds, matter of minutes. And it's beautiful. And to be afraid of that process, I just think is hilarious. It's like, nah, man, like this is the point. Like you're supposed to be exploring. You're supposed to be challenging yourself. You're supposed to do stuff that's kind of like make people turn their heads and be really curious on how you did it or why you did it, And if you're just so caught up in your own fears, then you're just never going to you're just never going to find that awesome artwork that could have been, you know? You have to give some you got to give some courage to your artwork. You know what I mean? You got to give some opportunity for your artwork to feel that you care about it, that you're trying to make it work. And it might not. It might still fail. It might still be a problem. But just as time goes on, you could build a really meaningful and powerful relationship with your artwork that allows you to come back to it often and frequently. And I think whenever people start to, and this goes back to kind of my own original, or this comes back to my point of like not chasing the trends. If you're trying to get infamy or fame off of your ability of cool artwork that you've made as one of the only thing that matters to you, for whatever good reasons you have, and there's plenty of good reasons, like making money. That's a pretty good reason. I obviously make art to make money, right? But the kind of art that I make, I would be making even if I didn't make money, you know? But if that is your reason, you know, and that's your sole reason, you know, that's it's not inspiring, right? Like it doesn't get you out of the bed. And so I don't know if it's a good tactic at the end of the day. I think there's just better ways to think about what you can be doing with your art that allows you to actually get up out in the morning and do it. But those motivations should be driven by what you already care about doing. I have so many students that take my course and they're always like, I just want to get a job. And I'm telling you, I've met people who just wanted to get a job. And as years go by, they're like, I wish I was doing this other thing though. I wish I was doing this thing. And I'm like, well, why don't you do it? And they're like, well, I can't because I have to work. So, well, you got the job, and yet you're still unsatisfied. So it's one of those things like, well, if you're going to do something and spend a lot of time trying to get good at it, then might as well focus on some of the things that you actually care about doing. And like I said, making bad art to make good art. Just keep making bad art until you start making good art. It just will happen, I promise. It's eventual. I haven't met somebody who's drawn consistently for like, let's say, decades, and they're like terrible at art. Like, this is just not a thing, you know? Like, I just don't know people who've like been spending at minimum 20 to 30 hours a week, you know? 20 to 30 hours a week minimum, and are like terrible at art. Or terrible at whatever craft that they decided to get into. Like, it's just not a thing I encounter or I see very often, if at all. You know? And so it's just fascinating to me to be so caught up with this premise of like, I don't want to be bad, like I want to make sure it's good. It's like, this is part of the deal, homie. You're gonna be bad for quite a bit until you get good. But eventually you'll get good. Like I said, I just don't know anybody who's not good at what they do with any meaningful investment in that craft. So anyway, sorry, I feel like I might have ranted a couple more times than I ought to. I'm doing something that where when I start to explore ideas that I just don't do a lot, I just have to be silent. And so like studying is one of those things where it's really hard for me to talk while doing it, because I'm like literally trying to like think about like what I just did. I'm like, ooh, that's cool. What if I did this? But I'm trying to make this somewhat meaningful. Yeah, I kind of like that little hobbit thingy. Yeah, let's try something that's a little bit more abrasive. Let's try. I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. Something that's a little bit less. Okay, I need to go at this angle. Trust the process, y'all. And then let's just wrap this around and imply that there's more going on there. Cool. That might make for a good thumbnail. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed my little study session and me making some bad art. And for some of you guys, you might be like, "This isn't bad." Like I assure you, I could do a much better job sculpting. My goal with this was to try to see what I can come up with in 30 minutes, doing kind of a quote unquote concept sculpt. You know what I mean? And this is what I did, and it's cool. I like it. This is one thing too that like I know for a fact that I could paint over like with high confidence and make it look really cool after the fact. Like if I threw it through proper material on these bad boys. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. And if I go to the render room and actually like light it, I can like come up with something really cool to paint on top of. Like it would work as a really good base, you know? In fact, that's why I use this kind of painterly thingy to kind of give me some texture clues on what I can do with that. But that is not my goal. My goal is not to paint over this. My goal is simply just make something that, oh, let's try this. Let's see how this looks like. Yeah, that black material worked really well. Let's put that on here to see how that looks. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's giving me some Metal Gear Solid vibes. I kind of actually now want to paint over it. Maybe I'll save it for another day. But anyway, let's put back the matte cap. This is kind of cool though, to be able to see the contrast between the two materials. I might just keep one of these things on. It just feels a little too aggressive, but anyway. I'm into it. Let's just keep it as is. Anyway, yeah, sometimes you got to make bad art to make good art. And I might come back and paint over this, maybe for a different video topic. We'll see. Anywho, hope you guys have a good one, man. Talk to you later.